1 year ago, we knew so little about the novel coronavirus. Now, a year later, the global pandemic, declared on this day, has changed so much about our lives. We've learned about masks, social distancing, quarantines, and vaccines.
We've had to rely on Zoom calls instead of hugs, and we've learned a lot about loss.
We wanted to take some time to reflect on the past year with three people who've covered all aspects of this pandemic.
So let's bring in Fox 11's Marla Tejas, Phil Schuman, Hal Eisner. Phil, let's start with you. What were you doing a year ago tonight, and reflect on this moment?
Well, like everybody else, a year ago, we were trying to understand what was happening and try to think about how serious it may be. And in the past year, you know, we have the opportunity to drive around Southern California on assignment. Every day is a different story, a different community, interacting with people. And this undercurrent of sadness and desperation and fear and seeing so many businesses shut down and the danger of losing their business. It's just been so painful to hear people's stories while we're, of course, trying to stay safe ourselves and keep everybody around us safe. Los Angeles is Southern California is such a vibrant, exciting, mostly beautiful place to be. That's why we all love it so much. And to see that flipped around 180 degrees has been so painful. But in the past couple of weeks, I definitely get the sense that there's a renewed optimism with the vaccines increasing and the numbers going down, that we're close to some degree of normalcy again.
Reporters like you, Phil, becoming literally essential workers. I want to talk to Marla Tejas now about her role. Marla, anchoring the noon, you really became a wealth of information for us, covering all of those daily news conferences. We turn to you for information.
Christine, you're right, and I spent a lot of time right here where I am right now in the newsroom trying to make sense of all the public health, the local health department briefings from Orange County, Los Angeles, Riverside County, Ventura County, making sense of it all. Also, the federal briefings and, as you're seeing here, briefings from the governor, and really trying to make sense and understand what does social distancing mean, sheltering in place, and as Phil said, how serious was this? And so doing that, you feel a really huge sense of responsibility to keep the public safe while trying to keep myself safe. So that was also really eye-opening. And also Operation Warp Speed, that seemed like that was light years away. Would we ever get a vaccine? And so here we are 1 year later. I'm in a newsroom with plexiglass. Everyone behind me, I wish you could see them, everyone has a mask on. How different it is. But as Alex just said, and Phil, there's such a sense of optimism and hope. So whereas a year ago I felt an angst I had never felt before, now I'm really looking forward to being able to see my mother, who I haven't seen in more than a year, and I'll get choked up just thinking about that.
Because she's not here in LA, so it makes sense you couldn't go travel.
Right, so I will be seeing my mom. She will be fully vaccinated in about another week and a half, and I cannot wait to give her a hug.
And we're so grateful that Hal Eisner is now fully vaccinated as well. Hal, you've been doing this job for a minute. And this year, you got to learn how to work at home, like so many other people got to learn to work at home for the first time.
I never thought it was possible, to be honest with you, Alex. I never thought that we would have the technology to be able to broadcast stories from home, and yet we do it with Zoom every day. And it's remarkable how we adjusted to the need to disseminate information. You know, listening to Phil and Marla, a lot of the same sentiments. And there were personal losses, too. I mean, it wasn't just a matter of us going out and talking about the losses others were having. My mother died during this pandemic, and it wasn't from coronavirus, but I didn't get to see her for the last 7 months of her life because I couldn't go into the nursing home in Dallas. So we all took real personal hits. We all were out there trying to do a job as essential workers, as first responders, to try to get information, to try to help the public. And I would add that I always had respect for doctors and nurses. Boy, it just went through the roof during this pandemic.
For sure. How old was Mom, Hal?
Mom was 96.
Oh, God bless her. God bless
she could have used a hug and a little loving at the end.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, we want to talk about our different roles as well, because I happened to be off that night. A lot of you know that my husband is a musician, and his tour had brought them to California, so I was very excited to go see the concert, and I saw the news come across that the pandemic was shutting things down. This was a packed room in San Juan Capistrano. And I remember standing on a balcony looking out, seeing wall-to-wall people and thinking, this is over. And what this represents to me is all of the people who then lost their jobs due to the pandemic. Every entertainer who was out there, working and performing was now out of work with really nowhere to go and nothing to do. So that reality for those of you who were out of work, I lived that as well with my own spouse at home.
And I remember a year ago, we had just launched this show called Coronavirus Crisis.
Yeah.
I was told about it on a Friday. We launched it on a Monday. I thought, how are we going to have enough content to fill a half hour talking about the coronavirus on Monday? Then by Wednesday of that week, in the half hour before we started our show at 7 o'clock, we had the president speak, we had the pandemic declared, we had the NBA closed down, and we had Tom Hanks, all within a half hour of our broadcast.
It really changed rapidly.
And it felt like the entire world was coming to an end almost. It was so extraordinary. I've never had a broadcast quite like that, and so we're going to reflect on that in the next half hour as well.
I want to ask you, reporters, and Phil, will go to you, becoming this essential worker, how has it felt to provide this very valuable role in covering this story?
Well, all of us in the news business take our jobs very seriously. Informing the public is a very important task. It's been particularly difficult to get information, reliable, accurate information, particularly from public officials. Even though they've made themselves available, it's all via Zoom and via remote, so that one-on-one, asking questions, pressing for details, clarification. That's been a challenge, although I do want to hand it to Barbara Ferrer, Mayor Garcetti, the governor. They have gone out of their way to make themselves available, but that has been a particular challenge in fulfilling our role of accurate, timely information.
Yeah. Marla, final thoughts?
I would just quickly mention, to piggyback what Phil was saying there about social media has really helped, I think, connect us with our viewers as well, because I really do feel that they relied on us to bring them that valuable information to keep their families safe, and that's been a really nice avenue to turn to as well. And I've been able to connect with our viewers and get stories that way, and I think that has also added to that sense of responsibility in doing our job and delivering accurate news.
And Hal?
Yeah, I think I want to say that there's nothing harder than 12 months of a pandemic. And I think what I want to say is to all of you that are watching, a great big group hug to every one of you, because we were living in a rabbit hole this past year. And I think that everybody tried to rise to the occasion, do what they needed to do for their kids, do what they needed to do for their families, do what they needed to do for their jobs. And everybody has a little something to be proud of for trying to deal with this in the most difficult of situations.
I think that one thing, as we wrap up here, that really helped me is I had gone to China 2 months before. I was planning to try to go back in 2020. So I've been watching everything China, and I saw the pandemic developing there and what was happening there and thought, uh-oh, this is coming to America. How are we going to handle this?
Yeah. Well, thank you all for all the hard work that you continue to do, and more work to do as we continue on tonight. But thank you all, and thank you all, viewers, for I think we've all sort of experienced this together and learned every day together, and we appreciate all of the support and work over the last year as well.
Continue to be safe, everyone.
Yeah.